The Great Conversion, how law, money, and identity merged into one system of control. 1. The year America changed without knowing it. Between 1913 and 1933, the United States quietly rewrote its operating code. New acts, emergency declarations, and executive orders restructured law, banking, and even citizenship itself. What looked like temporary measures to save the country were in fact permanent redefinitions of power. Gold was pulled from circulation. Owning it became a crime. The paper money that replaced it no longer represented value, it represented debt. And who owned the debt? The people. So what does that actually mean? America didn't go broke, it was put into managed bankruptcy. The government became a debtor. The new Federal Reserve became the creditor. And unelected financiers quietly became the referees of national policy. Footnote. The early 20th century marked the legal and financial transfer of U.S. sovereignty from public authority to private financial institutions. 2. From gold to paper, the birth of the debt dollar. President Roosevelt's emergency acts effectively nationalized gold and replaced it with paper credit backed by nothing but collective belief. It wasn't an act of theft so much as an act of transformation, the country was being rebuilt as a financial trust. Gold left the vaults. Promises filled the gap. Citizens were told it was patriotic to comply, to hand over real money for symbolic ones. The irony? The symbols became the system. So what does that actually mean? The dollar stopped being a receipt for wealth and became a receipt for obligation. Every new note printed after 1933 was negative value, a liability dressed as currency. Footnote. The removal of the gold standard institutionalized perpetual debt as the foundation of modern U.S. money. 3. The silent collateralization of the people. Around the same period, the state discovered something new it could monetize, its citizens. Through the Maternity and Shepherd-Towner Acts, birth registration became mandatory. Each new life came with paperwork, and that paperwork became a financial instrument. Birth certificates were printed on bond paper by companies like American Bank Note Company. Coincidence? Hardly. Each certificate functioned as a form of collateral, a security linked to future labor, taxes, and productivity. So what does that actually mean? By signing and registering a birth, parents unknowingly issued a financial claim on their child's potential earnings. The state, in turn, could pledge these instruments to borrow from the central bank. Footnote. Mandatory registration of births created a hidden mechanism for securitizing population-based credit against national debt. 4. The invention of the straw man. Every registered birth generated not just a record, but a legal duplicate. The child, John Henry Doe, became mirrored by John Henry Doe, a capitalized legal fiction recognized by courts and financial institutions. One living, one corporate. So what does that actually mean? The state can't own people, but it can own entities. The all-caps person became that entity, the debtor standing in for the real human. The courts, banks, and agencies interact only with that version. It's clever, if not chilling. The living man walks free, but his legal twin remains permanently pledged to the system that created him. Footnote. The capitalization of names in legal documents represents a juridical distinction between living persons and their registered legal entities. 5. Admiralty on land. By 1933, emergency powers and wartime statutes had reshaped American jurisdiction. Civil law gave way to commercial law. Courts now operated under admiralty principles, the law of contracts, commerce, and the high seas. So what does that actually mean? Step into a courtroom today and you're standing in a maritime venue, not a constitutional one. The defendant isn't the living you, it's the registered entity you're presumed to represent. Rights apply to people. Statutes apply to corporations. Guess which one the court sees when your name is in all caps. Footnote. The extension of admiralty and commercial law into domestic courts effectively replaced common law rights with administrative privileges. 6. The debt matrix. Once the United States became a debtor nation, The system needed fuel, collateral, credit, and continuity. The solution was to make every citizen both a participant and a guarantee. Birth certificates became bonds, social security numbers became accounts, and every signature became a promissory note. So what does that actually mean? The system converts human promise into financial product. You sign, they monetize. You labor, they leverage. You pay taxes, they collect interest. Footnote. The integration of personal identification with national credit systems blurred the line between civic participation and financial subjugation. 7. The escape clause. Here's the twist: if the system was built through contract, it can also be reversed through contract. Private law practitioners discovered that by reclaiming title to the legal entity, the straw man, a person could theoretically flip the creditor-debtor relationship. This approach, called the secured private title bond process, aims to re-establish ownership of the legal name, transforming the state's debtor into one's private debtor instead. So what does that actually mean? In theory, the same tools used to bind the population can be used to unbind it. Law is neutral, it serves whoever knows how to write the terms. Footnote. Contract law allows for reversion of legal title through private bonding, though its application in public jurisdictions remains contested. 8. The lesson behind the ledger. America's modern system didn't happen by accident, it evolved through law, necessity, and convenience. Whether one calls it enslavement or efficiency depends on perspective. The truth sits somewhere between conspiracy and design. So what does that actually mean? Control and freedom have always shared a fine print. Read it carefully, and you might find the exit clause has been there all along. Footnote. The historical shift from asset-based money to contract-based governance reflects both the genius and the peril of modern law. The Great Conversion: how law, money, and identity merged into one system of control.